Although tough on crime appeals have never been limited to conservative politicians or voters, conservatives instinctively, and it turned out correctly, understood that the way to reduce crime is to have more cops making more arrests, not more sociologists identifying more root causes. Conservatives are rightly proud to have supported police officers doing their jobs at times when progressives were on the other side. As far as progressive policies go, when we were presented with the Defund the Police initiative, it made many on the right wing stop and say, that's dumb. Then we said, I told you so, when crime rates soared in cities like New York and Minneapolis in the wake of these initiatives. This outcome was hardly a revelation, but for many it crystallized the notion that there is undoubtedly a need for police forces, and policing itself might be a necessary evil. But I think the last few years for a lot of people have made us stop and think how deep our allegiance to the police force should actually go. And this, of course, is not because all police are bad or all police stand in the way of liberty and freedom. It's that if the last 2 years is anything to go by, police don't really answer to the population. They answer to their higher-ups, and their higher-ups appear to answer to politicians. Some have even argued that the police force is merely an arm of whichever government they serve. How much or how little we like them is entirely dependent upon who's in charge. And I don't know, maybe there's something to be said for that. For many of us, the last 2 years have shown how tyrannical, unreasonable, and overreaching government and its laws, rules, and regulations can be. Many of us who viewed ourselves as decent, law-abiding citizens suddenly found ourselves at odds with mandates and regulations that were either unconstitutional or directly impacted our mobility and rights as citizens. Even I fell into the trap of complacency thinking, I don't break the law, so what would police even want with me? And this way of thinking is all well and good until the goalposts change. What shocked a good portion of us further still were the actions of police who were instructed to enforce these laws, rules, and regulations. It even seems some took great delight in harassing and terrorizing otherwise law-abiding citizens for sometimes the most trivial of infractions. I'm looking at you, Victoria Police. You giant bag of smashed buttholes. For the last 2 years in Australia, we have seen videos of police beating people for not wearing masks, firing rubber bullets at the backs of fleeing unarmed protesters, using unnecessary force or pepper spray on elderly men and women.
And I'm still fighting, and it's like a one eye. I never quit and never live by fear. Hold the line! Hold the line!
Hold the line is a message from a man that's just been pepper sprayed and released from the paramedics behind us. 80-year-old man, Avi Yamini for Rebel News.
People have blood on your hands to depopulate the planet. You've got blood on your hands.
In Canada, in only the last little while, we saw cops exchanging gleeful messages about going after demonstrators in Ottawa. We watched videos of excessive force on peaceful, unarmed protesters. We heard the Ottawa police saying that they will use all resources available to target protesters and anyone associated with protesters.
Thank you. It's a great question. And the simple answer is yes. If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. Absolutely.
We have increased ability to identify and target protesters and supporters of protesters who are funding and enabling unlawful and harmful activity by the protesters themselves. Investigative evidence gathering teams are collecting financial, digital, vehicle registration, driver identification, insurance status, and other related evidence that will be used in prosecutions.
People in these two countries and many other countries around the world have been bashed, kicked in the head, thrown to the ground. In New Zealand, they ripped people out of crowds by their hair. Real talk though, what is happening here? Police in many Western countries come to protests decked out in riot gear with military weapons anticipating battle with an enemy. But the question is, how has the otherwise law-abiding citizen, standing for freedom, and the end to unnecessary restrictions come to be seen as this enemy? This policing overreach has extended to matters as simple as not showing your vax pass at the shops, not wearing a mask, peacefully assembling just to be heard by the very politicians who are supposedly in power to represent us.
The small fringe minority will defend democracy. We are taking these actions today to stand against authoritarianism.
The simple answer is yes. If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges.
The way to get your account unfrozen is to stop being part of the blockade.
Against authoritarianism.
I just want to get a coffee, okay?
Why is the camera in my face right now? Are you here partaking?
You walk
right
up
now
to
you're
me.
in the red zone?
I'm scared. I want to go for a coffee down there.
Okay.
Can I go for a coffee?
People still being arrested right now.
Do you live in this?
You're not excluded from that.
But I'm
Where do you live?
Alberta.
Time for you to leave.
I can't even go down there for a coffee.
No, go grab yourself in the red zone right now. If you don't leave right now, you will be arrested. Do you understand me?
I can't go for a coffee.
Grab yourself, because if we see you, we'll be patrolling all day. If we see you again, it'll be different.
Leave. I tell you, take your camera and get out of here. Do you understand that?
I'm walking away.
Walk away. Your phone doesn't need to be in our face when you're walking away. Go.
The actions of these police, while some might argue are not representative of all police as a whole, absolutely broke the heart of so many citizens. Just following orders, as the phrase goes, is not an acceptable explanation for the force and brutality exercised against peaceful, unarmed people. Side note, and speaking of just following orders, research conducted in 1963 called the Behavioral Study of Obedience found that people actually feel disconnected from their actions when they comply with orders, even though they're the ones committing the act. They often view their actions as passive rather than voluntary. In 1962, Holocaust organizer Adolf Eichmann said that he and other low-level officers were forced to serve as mere instruments at the instruction of their higher-ups. But Germans and psychology aside, it doesn't change culpability. And I will take the opportunity to add that I know there are police who have quit the force over the mandates and other things that are in place. I also know that there are police who feel very similarly to the way that everyday citizens are feeling towards the police force as a general rule.
The very freedom that I moved to Canada for has been taken away, and people, Canadians who lived here, who were born here, they were not recognizing that. I fought here. I fought to come here to have it, and it was very difficult to see, to be taken away. Thank you, truckers. Thank you, farmers. Thank you, people with open hearts and clear minds, for standing up, the police officers when we could not stand up for you. I know it's clear in my mind what decision I will make when I am asked to follow an unlawful order. I'm for freedom of choice, for freedom of conscience, for freedom of speech, for freedom of expression, for freedom of communication. And I am to serve, protect, and to help out you people in Canada.